Paul Bradley believes in the transformative power of art. With a background in painting and drawing, he brings vast experience to his current position at Creative Waikato. Paul is a former tutor at Tui Whakaari, the New Zealand School of Drama, and has also worked with artists on the fringe of society, those challenged by physical and intellectual disability, those with mental illness, and in prison. His professional focus is on community development, facilitating the creation of murals, theatre, sculpture, exhibition and art events. Paul Bradley.
I got off lightly with that one, didn't I? Let's try and get a bit more height. There you go. Yep. So I'm going to talk to you today a bit about creativity because I've spent a lot of my life doing it and thinking about it. As an artist, a collaborator, a tutor, a facilitator, and just an observer, I guess. So this is an image by Aya Dowsett-Watts, who's actually my goddaughter, and I'm just in awe of this kind of art because it's just made as an act of pure joy, really. Like there's no critical blocks of the mind or anything like that. It's just, she's just obviously, loves it. And that's something I really aspire to, and I know most adults find quite hard to achieve. But I aim for that, and on a good day I get that, and I also try to, switch to apply a critical mind now and then. And I've had the privilege of working with people with intellectual disabilities as well, and often they have that amazing ability, which to me really challenges that label of disability. As Richard mentioned, I've worked in prison, and I've seen creativity do amazing things to people who are in prison, and things like building self-esteem. Probably most importantly, to teach them to play. And also amazing kind of innovation. So when you've got restrictions and creativity, these sorts of incredible things happen, like this prison tattoo gun made out of a cassette player motor and various other found objects. So I find that sort of thing fascinating. It's kind of highly illegal within that environment, but really awesome. So I've used restrictions with students quite a lot. These are students at Tui Whakaari, and we did these kind of exercises with them where they paired up, and some of the students were blindfold and the other ones had to direct them to, paint up, paint left, right, etc. And I like to use restrictions in my own work as well, because there's this kind of paradox that happens when I restrict myself in some areas, I get really freed up in other areas. So, even things like limiting the colour palette, using just a single size brush, it means I can sort of really get a bit loose in other ways. I do projections for theatre, and that's got its own interesting set of restrictions to make something that's appropriate, but then is not just kind of mirroring or illustrating, but kind of expanding on what's happening. So I like that challenge. As well as commercial art. I like to ride a line between commercial and fine art. I think those kind of categories are a bit annoying. So, but within a artist brief, to really push out as much as you can against it, and like with this work here for the Mental Health Foundation, and I'm interested in this idea of wellness, and really with creative wellness, because we talk a lot about our physical health and our mental health, but I think our creative health is something that people don't really talk about that much, and it's so important. So we really need to sort of pay attention to it and spend time with it, I think. I love working with communities. Really interesting things happen when you bring people together and they've got a creative focus. Artistically, interesting things happen, but also socially. And it's just an amazing vehicle for developing individuals and groups. And I've got quite a social approach to my own art practice, in that I love collaborating. So this is a fort that I built with Stephanie, and it not only sort of created this really cool temporary studio, but the kind of act of building the fort as a way of getting into that negotiating of collaboration kind of space before you actually start working on the creative stuff. And you know, I find collaborating is always interesting because it's like a conversation that you're having with another person or a group of people, and you end up going somewhere that you'd never go on your own. So I like to invite people to collaborate with me in exhibitions as well. So this is where I painted on a wall of a gallery with blackboard paint, and people would come along and add their own bits to it. Sometimes people were brave enough to use the duster there and start fresh. So I like to kind of issue those invitations. And I like to kind of it's kind of breaking down barriers as well. I don't like the idea of certain people owning art and other people being observers and it being shut away in spaces. So this is a projection I did in Victoria Street in a shop window. And I like to kind of, the idea that it surprises people when they're walking down the street, that they're confronted with something that they might not usually see. I have exhibited in galleries as well. I'm not anti-gallery, but what I've done is things like have time lapses going alongside these images of me making the images, and people are really fascinated by that because often we just present the finished stuff, and I think the process is often equally as interesting, which has led me to do this kind of work, which is a band I play with, the Mamaku Project. And I do a live drawing for each song, and it's mixed with animation, so people see that drawing unfolding in time with the music and those sorts of things, which is kind of risky, but I like that. I like that I'm putting myself on the line like the musicians are, that I can make mistakes, because I think mistakes, even in that kind of context, they open up opportunities to do something that you weren't expecting that you were going to do. So I'm no good at perfection anyway, so I try and embrace it. Images like this, this was started as a doodle, and then I actually knocked over the red ink bottle, and then I was also drinking coffee, so it needed some coffee, and I do all these things to kind of help keep it out of my control. I find if I try and contain it too much, then it ends up being something that doesn't have that liveliness to it. So I think, might as well just go with it and make a mess. So that's a very brief kind of overview of some of my relationship with creativity, but it's kind of an ongoing journey, and I could talk about it for hours, but there's 400 seconds of it. So thanks for listening. Paul Mario.